Hello friends. Welcome to the DXD Tales. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei became the immortal vampire Lord W. Ho ruled the eternal night, Issei x Elmenhilde x Rias Gremory. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Blood of the Dragon. The moon hung bloated and crimson above Kuo town, its light seeping through the abandoned church windows like blood through gauze. Issei Hyodo's body lay sprawled across the cold stone floor, his school uniform torn and soaked with rapidly cooling blood. The fallen angel Rainer had departed moments ago, her laughter still echoing against the decrepit walls as she admired the light spear that had pierced his chest. Death should have claimed him then. In countless other realities, perhaps it did, or perhaps a crimson-haired devil princess arrived to bind his soul to her service. But in this particular splinter of fate, something else stirred in the shadows of the desecrated church. The droplets of Issei's blood, scattered across the ancient flagstones, began to move, not drying or congealing, but flowing with unitu. Raw purpose toward cracks in the floor that had remained sealed for centuries. His final heartbeats pumped the remaining blood from his wound, feeding crimson tributaries that disappeared into the darkness below. "Interesting," whispered a voice from nowhere and everywhere. "Your blood calls to what sleeps beneath." How unprecedented. Pain had given way to numbness as Issei's consciousness flickered. The fallen angel's betrayal, the cruel revelation that his first girlfriend had only approached him to murder him, felt distant now, unimportant compared to the growing cold. His vision dimmed at the edges, darkness encroaching until only a pinprick of the blood-red moon remained visible through the broken ceiling. "I'm dying," he managed to think with surprising clarity. "Yes," agreed the disembodied voice. "But perhaps not permanently." Beneath the church floor, something ancient awakened. The structure had been built atop ruins far older than Christianity's presence in Japan, remains of a temple erected by European visitors centuries ago, followers of a much different faith who worshipped the night itself. Issei's blood had seeped through to a hidden chamber where a forgotten artifact lay, a chalice carved from obsidian, inlaid with crimson gemstones that began to pulse with light as the first droplets of his blood pooled within. The voice spoke again, stronger now. "Dragon blood. How exquisite. It has been millennia since such power touched my prison." Issei couldn't see the speaker, couldn't move his dying body, but somehow he understood. "Who? What are you?" Avenue worn many names across the long centuries. Vampire, Nosferatu, Strigoi, labels created by frightened mortals to explain what they cannot comprehend. "I am simply the first of my kind, or what remains of him." The voice carried no echo despite the cavernous space, as if the very air refused to repeat its words. "Your blood has partially freed me, but my physical form remains trapped by ancient magics. However, I could offer you a choice few mortals ever receive." Each word seemed to pull Issei back from the brink, anchoring his fading consciousness. "Choice. Die here, truly and finally, or accept my essence and be transformed. The dragon power within you is remarkable. Combined with my blood, you might become something unprecedented." The voice carried no emotion, offering neither encouragement nor discouragement. "Choose quickly. Your mortal coil unravels." Faces flashed through Issei's fading mind. His parents who would grieve him, friends who would wonder what happened, dreams that would never be fulfilled. Rainer's mocking laughter echoed in his memory, her cruel dismissal of his humanity. "I don't want to die," he whispered, blood bubbling between his lips. "Not like this. Not as nothing." The ancient entity made no sound that could be interpreted as satisfaction or disappointment. "Then drink." The stone floor beneath Issei cracked open, and the obsidian chalice rose from the hidden chamber below. Now filled with a liquid too dark to be merely blood. With strength he shouldn't possess, Issei found himself reaching for it, hands trembling as his fingers closed around the ancient vessel. The liquid within seemed to move of its own volition, rippling despite the absence of any disturbance. "What will I become?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Something new," came the cryptic reply. "Now choose, dragon child." Issei lifted the chalice to his lips and drank. Fire erupted through his veins, pain beyond anything Rainer's light spear had inflicted. He screamed, but no sound escaped his throat, only blood, which evaporated into crimson mist as it touched the air. His body convulsed, back arching impossibly as his spine cracked and reformed. Bones broke and knitted themselves anew. Muscles tore and rewove with greater density. His heart stuttered, struggled, then stopped completely. For 3 excruciating minutes, Issei Hyodo was clinically dead. Then his eyes snapped open, irises now a luminous crimson that pulsed with inner light. His first breath in his new existence was not drawn from need but habit, air-filling lungs that no longer required oxygen. The wound in his chest had closed, leaving a star-shaped scar over his heart that throbbed with a deep, burning power. "What have you done to me?" he gasped, voice carrying new harm. Onyx that made the broken windows vibrate. The ancient voice seemed fainter now, as if receding. "I have given you my essence, the last of my power. The rest is yours to discover. My long impriso. End meant ends not with freedom but transformation. I continue through you, dragon child turned blood drinker." "Wait," Issei called out, struggling to stand on unfamiliar legs that felt simultaneously weaker and stronger than before. "I don't understand any of this. Seek the night dwellers. The Karnstein girl approaches already, she will sense your awakening." The voice faded further, becoming little more than a whisper. "Remember this. Blood freely given holds power, blood forcefully taken brings only temporary strength and eternal enemies. You carry dragon fire in your veins now, a combination never before witnessed. The rules that bound others of your new kind may not all apply to you." "What rules? What kind?" Issei demanded, but the presence had almost completely dissipated. "You are no longer human, nor pure vampire, nor only dragon host. You are the first of something new. The Crimson Emperor of the Eternal Night." With these final words, the ancient presence vanished entirely, leaving Issei alone in the ruined church with only the moonlight and his racing thoughts. A wave of hunger crashed through him, so intense it doubled him over. His newly elongated canines pressed against his lower lip, drawing pinpricks of his own blood that tasted like liquid power on his tongue. The hunger redoubled, a primal need that threatened to overwhelm rational thought. "Blood," he whispered, understanding instinctively what his transformed body craved. "I need blood." The thought both repulsed and enticed him. He staggered toward the church doors, desperate to escape the lingering scent of his own spilled human blood that now smelled simultaneously mouthwatering and like ashes. His enhanced senses overwhelmed him. He could hear heartbeats from hundreds of meters away, smell he distinctive sense of humans returning to their homes after late nights out, feel the vibrations of a subway train passing far beneath the streets. Moonlight bathed him as he stumbled outside, and, rather than weakening him as vampire legends might suggest, it seemed to strengthen his trembling limbs. He felt a connection to the night itself, as if the darkness welcomed him into its embrace. "What am I supposed to do now?" he wondered aloud, his new voice still strange to his ears. "First, you should hide that aura before every supernatural being in 10 kilometers comes to investigate," answered a crisp, feminine voice with a subtle European accent. Issei whirled around, moving with inhuman speed that surprised even himself. Standing at the edge of the church grounds was a petite young woman with pale blonde hair styled in elegant drill-shaped curls. Her attire seemed plucked from a Victorian Gothic fashion magazine, a black and burgundy dress with intricate lacework, impractical, yet somehow perfect for her diminutive frame. Despite her youthful appearance, her eyes reflected centuries of experience. "Who are you?" Issei demanded, instinctively dropping into a defensive stank. He'd never practiced in his human life. The girl's eyes widened fractionally, the only indication of surprise on her otherwise composed features. "Interesting. You've been transformed for mere minutes. Yet you already have the instincts of a predator centuries old." She offered a curtsy that managed to appear both genuinely respectful and subtly mocking. "Elmenhilde Karnstein, daughter of House Karnstein, one of the 13 noble vampire houses of Europe. And you are an impossibility that I've crossed an ocean to witness." "You knew this would happen." Issei's hunger momentarily receded beneath a wave of anger. "Did you arrange this? Work with that fallen angel who killed me?" Elmenhilde's expression shifted to genuine offense. "I would never collaborate with those feathered abominations. They lack refinement and proper appreciation for tradition." She approached with measured steps, her movements elegant and precise. "I arrived in this country 3 nights ago, following rumors of an ancient vampire presence awakening. I expected to find one of the sealed elders breaking free, not a newly created hybrid with dragon energy radiating from him like a beacon. Issei's hand unconsciously moved to the scar on his chest. Dragon energy. You don't know. Elmenhilde circled him with undisguised curiosity. You possess a sacred gear, a divine tool created by the biblical god. Specifically, you host Ddraig, the Red Dragon Emperor, one of the most powerful dragons ever to exist. Her eyes narrowed, which makes your transformation even more remarkable. Vampires cannot normally host sacred gears. Our undead nature rejects divine tools. Yet here you stand, vampire and dragon host simultaneously. The information bombarded Issei's already overwhelmed mind. Just days ago, he'd been an ordinary, somewhat perverted high school student whose greatest concern had been his persistent virginity. Now he stood transformed into something unprecedented, being examined by an aristocrat. Tick vampire who had apparently crossed continents to find him. The hunger surged again, causing him to double over with a groan. His vision sharpened painfully, every shadow becoming perfectly visible. While colors intensified to an almost hallucinatory degree. He could see the delicate network of veins beneath Elmenhilde's pale skin, could hear the slow, measured beat of her heart, different from human heartbeats he'd detected earlier. Steadier and more controlled. You need to feed, she stated matter-of-factly. Your first hunger is always the strongest and most dangerous. If you don't satisfy it properly, you risk falling into a frenzy that could expose us all. I won't kill anyone, Issei growled, fighting the urge to lunge at the nearest source of blood, which happened to be Elmenhilde herself. She smiled, revealing her own delicate fangs. Commendable morality for a newborn vampire. Most are little more than beasts for their first week. From within her elaborate dress, she produced a crystal vial filled with deep crimson liquid. Here, this will take the edge off until we can arrange a proper feeding for you. Issei eyed the vial suspiciously. What is it? Preserved human blood freely donated, she replied. My personal emergency supply. Consider it a welcoming gift from one night dweller to another. His hand moved seemingly of its own accord, snatching the vial and uncorking it in one fluid motion. The scent hit him like a physical blow, rich, complex, full of life and energy. Without conscious decision, he tipped the contents into his mouth. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. Energy surged through his transformed body, strength flowing into previously weak limbs. His mind cleared, the hunger receding from all-consuming need to manageable desire. Every sense sharpened further, but now he could process the information without being overwhelmed by it. Better, Elmenhilde asked, watching him with analytical interest. Issei wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Surprised to find his body temperature had dropped significantly, his skin now felt cool to the touch. Yes, thank you. He examined the empty vial. So this is my existence now. Drinking blood to survive, among other things, she confirmed. Though I suspect your particular requirements may differ from traditional vampires, given your unique nature. Her head tilted slightly. Can you feel him? The dragon within. Issei concentrated, searching his internal landscape. Beyond the newfound strength and predatory instincts, he detected something else, a slumbering consciousness, vast and ancient. Curled around his soul like a protective barrier. He's there, Issei confirmed. Sleeping, I think. Or, recovering. The transformation process likely drained both of you, Elmenhilde theorized. When he awakens fully, we'll discover just how unprecedented your condition truly is. She gestured toward the city below. We should leave this place. The fallen L's attack and your transformation will have left magical residue that others may investigate. I have secured appropriate accommodations where we can continue this discussion more privately. Suspicion flared in Issei's mind. Why are you helping me? What do you want? Elmenhilde's expression remained carefully neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. Calculation, perhaps, or genuine interest. Multiple reasons. Academic curiosity about a unique supernatural phenomenon. Political advantage in being the first to establish contact with a new power. Personal interest in someone who might understand the burden of immortality. Her perfectly composed facade cracked slightly, revealing a glimpse of loneliness quickly concealed. And practical necessity, a newly turned vampire with drag. On powers stumbling around without guidance could wreak havoc on the delicate balance between supernatural factions. It wasn't a complete answer, but Issei sensed no immediate threat from her. His new instincts, predatory, calculating, yet strangely insightful, suggested she was being selectively honest rather than outright deceptive. Lead the way, he finally agreed. But understand this, I may not know exactly what I've become. But I'm not anyone's puppet or experiment. For the first time, Elmenhilde's smile seemed genuine rather than practiced. How refreshing. Most newborns are easily manipulated in their confusion. She turned, dress swirling dramatically around her petite form. Follow closely. I'll teach you how to move as we go. Move, Issei questioned, but his words died as Elmenhilde suddenly dissolved into a swarm of crimson-tinted bats that scattered briefly before reforming several meters away. Like that, she called back, amusement coloring her voice. Though you might develop your own methods. Given your unique nature, Issei stared at his hands, wondering if he could perform the same transformation. Instead of consciously attempting to mimic her, he simply surrendered to his new instincts. His body responded by seeming to evaporate into crimson mist that moved with his thoughts, flowing across the church grounds at impossible speed before reforming at Elmenhilde's side. Fascinating, she observed. Not bats but mist, and crimson-tinged, like dragon fire-made vapor. You're already developing variations on traditional vampire abilities. Pride surged through Issei, the first positive emotion since his transformation began. He had always been ordinary in his human life, average grades, average athletic ability, average in nearly everything except his enthusiastic perversion. This newfound exceptionalism, even in something as strange as vampire powers, kindled something within him. What else can I do? He asked, unable to keep the eagerness from his voice. That, Elmenhilde replied with subtle amusement, is what we're going to discover. The appropriate accommodations Elmenhilde had mentioned turned out to be an entire penthouse. Atop one of Kuo City's most exclusive apartment buildings. The space was elegantly appointed with a mixture of modern minimalism and classic European flourishes, clearly designed to make a vampire fae at home while maintaining contemporary convenience. You live here? Issei asked, taking in the opulent surroundings. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, though HEAV. Curtains stood ready to block the coming dawn. One of several properties maintained by House Karnstein in major cities worldwide, Elmenhilde explained, removing her elaborate outer jacket to rev a simpler but still formally styled blouse beneath. We established footholds in strategic locations centuries ago. Vampires may be creatures of tradition, but we understand the importance of adaptation. Issei moved to the windows, staring out at the city he'd lived in his entire human life, now transformed into a tapestry of sounds, scents, and energies his enhanced senses could perceive. Individual heartbeats stood out among the cacophony, each a potential meal, his predatory instincts unhelpfully reminded him. I should contact my parents, he realized suddenly. They'll be worried sick. Elmenhilde's expression turned solemn. That presents complications. Newly turned vampires rarely maintain human connections. The hunger makes it dangerous, and the difference in lifespan makes it painful. I'm not abandoning my family, Issei stated firmly, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. The old Issei might have wavered or second-guessed himself, but something about his transformation had crystallized his core values while burning away hesitation. Even if your presence puts them at risk, Elmenhilde challenged, not just from your own hunger, but from enemies who would target them to get to you. The supernatural world is perilous, Issei Hyodo. The various factions, devils, angels, fallen angels, yokai, and dozens more, maintain an uneasy peace that breaks into violence with regularity. Issei turned from the window, eyes glowing crimson in the dimly lit penthouse. Then I'll become strong enough to protect them. All of them. Instead of arguing further, Elmenhilde studied him with newfound respect. Perhaps you will at that. Your determination is unusual for a newborn. Most spend their first decades in self-centered hunger and confusion. She gestured to a sleek smartphone on a nearby table. Use that to contact them. Tell them you're staying with a friend for a school project. It will buy us time to develop more permanent arrangements. Grateful for the practical solution, Issei called home. His mother answered, concern evident in her voice until he fabricated a believable excuse about a multi-day science project with a new exchange student. The lie came with surprising ease, his new voice carrying subtle tones that seemed to ease her worries without being outright supernatural compulsion. After ending the call, he turned to Finn. Elmenhilde arranging various items on a low table, crystal vials similar to the one she'd given him earlier, along with several ancient-looking books and what appeared to be medical equipment. "What's all this?" he asked, approaching cautiously. "Research materials," she answered matter-of-factly. "I need to understand what you are if I'm to help you control it." She held up a syringe. "All nay, ed blood samples to analyze your unique physiology." Issei instinctively stepped back. "You want to experiment on me. I want to help you," she corrected, though her tone remained clinically detached. "But to do that, I need data. Vampires cannot host sacred gears, it should be metaphysically impossible. Yet you maintain your connection to Ddraig despite the transformation. Understanding how LD revolutionize our understanding of both vampire and dragon magic." Before Issei could respond, a new voice interrupted, deep, resonant, and definitely not human. "She speaks truth, partner, thou. Her motivations extend beyond mere scientific curiosity." Issei spun in place, searching for the source before realizing it had originated from within his own mind. "Who? I am Ddraig, the Red Dragon Emperor. One of the 2 heavenly dragons sealed within the sacred gear-boosted gear. And you, Issei Hyodo, have become the most unusual host I have ever known in countless millennia." "You're awake," Issei breathed, unconsciously pressing a hand to his chest where the star-shaped scar pulsed with warmth, the only part of his body that still radiated heat. "The vampire transformation nearly severed our connection. Had it been a normal turning, performed by a common vampire, it would have destroyed your sacred gear entirely. But the entity that transformed you was no ordinary vampire, and you are no ordinary host." Elmenhilde had frozen in place, her composed facade cracking to reveal genuine astonishment. "The dragon speaks directly, without manifestation of the sacred gear." She set down her instruments. All pretense of scientific detachment abandoned. "This is unprecedented. The rules have changed, little vampire. My partner's transformation has altered the fundamental nature of our bond. I am no longer merely contained within a sacred gear, I am partially merged with his transformed essence." "Is that good?" Issei asked uncertainly. "It is neither good nor bad, simply different. Your potential power ceiling has increased exponentially, but the path to mastering it will be uniquely challenging. You are neither purely vampire nor purely dragon host, but something new that combines aspects of both while transcending their limitations." Elmenhilde had recovered her composure, though excitement still brightened her eyes. "The Crimson Emperor of the Eternal Night," she murmured. "That's what the Ancient One called you, yes. A fitting title for the first vampire dragon emperor." Issei frowned. "I don't need fancy titles. I just need to understand what's happening to me and how to control it." A sudden thought struck him. "Wait. That fallen angel, Raynor. She killed me because of this sacred gear. Will she come back when she realizes I'm not actually dead?" "Almost certainly. The fallen angels sought to eliminate you before you could awaken my power. Now that you have not only awakened but transformed, you represent an even greater threat in their eyes." "Or opportunity," Elmenhilde added thoughtfully. "Some might seek to control or ally with you instead. Your unique nature makes you valuable to any faction." The implicati on settled heavily on Issei's shoulders. His transformation had thrust him into supernatural politics he barely understood, with powers he couldn't yet control and enemies already moving against him. The ordinary life he'd known was irrevocably gone. A wave of exhaustion suddenly crashed through him, his transformed body reaching its limits after the trauma of death and rebirth. His knees buckled, and only Elmenhilde's surprising strength prevented him from collapsing entirely as she guided him to a nearby couch. "Dawn approaches," she observed, glancing toward the windows where the first hint of lightening sky was visible. "New vampires typically fall into deathly sleep during daylight hours. Given your hybrid nature, you may experience something different, but rest is clearly needed." "What about you?" Issei managed to ask as his consciousness began to fade. Elmenhilde's smile held centuries of practiced patience. "I will secure the perimeter and make preparations for your education when you awaken. Sleep now, Issei Hyodo. Your first night is something more than human is ending, but your eternity is just beginning." As darkness claimed him, Issei's last conscious thought, was a determined promise to himself. He would master this new existence, protect those he cared about, and make Rainer regret ever targeting him. The shy, uncertain teenager had died in that church. Something far more dangerous would rise in his place. Consciousness returned to Issei gradually, accompanied by an unexpected sensation, pain. Sunlight had penetrated a narrow gap in the heavy curtains, sending a thin beam across the room that now touched his exposed hand. Unlike the instantaneous immolation of vampires in fiction, this felt more like an intense sunburn developing with unnature. Speed. Painful but not immediately fatal. He jerked his hand away with a hiss, examining the reddened skin that was already beginning to heal before his eyes. So sunlight is still a problem, he muttered. Just not an instantly lethal one. Another fascinating deviation from vampire norm, noted Elmenhilde, who sat in an armchair across from him, a large ancient tome open in her lap. She hadn't changed clothes, suggesting she hadn't slept at all. Traditional vampires would suffer third-degree burns within seconds of direct sunlight exposure. Your dragon essence appears to provide partial protection. Issei carefully navigated around the sunbeam, moving deeper into the shadow-filled penthouse. How long was I unconscious? Nearly 14 hours, she replied, closing her book. Less than the typical daylight torpor for new vampires, which usually lasts from dawn to dusk regardless of geography. Your unique physiology continues to surprise. Hunger gnawed at him again, though less desperately than the previous night. I need to, he began awkwardly. Feed. Yes. Elmenhilde rose gracefully, setting her book aside. I've prepared several options for you to try. We need to determine your specific requirements. She led him to what appeared to be a normal kitchen, opening a refrigerator filled with medical blood bags of various types, labeled with information he didn't understand. Next to them sat crystal decanters containing liquids of slightly varying shades of red. Hospital blood, freely donated, she explained, indicating the bags. Preserved with minimal additives, and these, she gestured to the decanters, are special reserves from willing donors with particularly rich blood, athletes, individuals with rare blood types, people with specific magical affinities. The clinical arrangement should have disturbed him, but Issei found himself appreciating the organized approach to what could otherwise be a messy, morally complicated necessity. I just drink it cold. For now, Elmenhilde confirmed. Eventually, you'll likely prefer fresh, directly consumed blood, but this allows for controlled experimentation with your nutritional needs. Issei selected a random bag, surprising himself with how naturally he punctured it with his fangs and began to drink. The flavor was acceptable, if somewhat flat compared to the vial Elmenhilde had shared the previous night. It satisfied his hunger without igniting the euphoria he'd experienced before. Adequate but unimpressive, he assessed, wiping his mouth. Elmenhilde nodded as if confirming a hypothesis. Try one from the decanters. The one with the ruby stopper contains blood from a martial artist with particularly developed chi energy. This blood proved markedly better, richer, more satisfying. With subtle flavors he couldn't name but instinctively appreciated. Energy flowed through him more potently, and he felt his strength increasing beyond what the medical blood had provided. Blood quality matters, he realized aloud. Indeed, for traditional vampires, the most satisfying blood comes from willing donors experiencing positive emotions, pleasure, excitement, joy. Blood taken by force from frightened victims provides sustenance but lacks spiritual nutrients, for lack of a better term. Elmenhilde's expression became thoughtful. However, your dragon aspect may create different preferences. The blood of powerful beings might prove more beneficial for your development. Issei finished the decanter, feeling more settled and clear-headed. Thank you for arranging this. It's not as horrific as I imagined. Drinking blood. The transition is easiest for those who approach their new nature with pragmatism rather than emotional resistance, she observed. Now that you've fed, we should begin your education in earnest. There's much to learn, and events are already in motion around us. What events? Issei asked, immediately alert. The fallen angels have you survived their assassination attempt. They've increased their presence in the city and appear to be searching systematically. Elmenhilde's tone remained casual, but her posture had tensed subtly. Additionally, the devil faction that controls this territory, the House of Gremory, has begun investigating the surge of vampire energy they detected last night. Gremory. The name sounded vaguely familiar to Issei, though he couldn't place it. One of the 72 pillars of the underworld, high-ranking devil nobility, Elmenhilde explained. Their heiress, Rias Gremory, attends your human show. OL under the guise of a foreign exchange student. Her peerage, her personal retainers and combatants, make up the so-called occult research club. The information clicked into place. Rias Gremory, the C. Rimson-haired beauty all the boys at Kuo Academy idolized from afar. Issei had admired her himself, though more carnally than romantically. The revelation that she was actually a devil princess expla. In her otherworldly beauty and the strange aura of power he'd occasionally sensed around her even as a human. Will she be hostile? He asked, already calculating potential routes of escape from the penthouse if necessary. Uncertain, Elmenhilde admitted. Devils and vampires maintain formal diplomatic relations but rarely trust one another. Your unique nature might intrigue her enough to attempt communication before hostility. However, her expression darkened slightly. There's another complication. The heir to House Vladdy has arrived in Kuo City as well. Vladdy, the vampire lord you mentioned last night. House Vladdy is one of the most ancient and conservative vampire noble houses, Elmenhilde explained. They maintain the strictest adherence to vampire traditions and hierarchy. The current heir, Gaspar Vladdy, was recently exiled from vampire society for possessing a sacred gear of his own, a rare exception that required complex magic to maintain. Issei absorbed this information with growing unease. So I'm caught between fallen angels who want me dead, devils who control local territory, and traditional vampires who might see me as an abomination. Succinct assessment. Elmenhilde acknowledged with a slight nod. Though I suspect Gaspar himself may prove sympathetic to your situation, given his own outsider status. It's his father, Lord Vladdy, who concerns me. The elder Vladdy views sacred gears as divine pollution incompatible with vampire purity. The complexities of supernatural politics were dizzying, but Issei found his transformed mind processing the information with surprising clarity. Connections formed, implications unfolded, and potential strategies emerged more naturally than they ever had in his human life. I need to test my abilities, he decided firmly. If conflict is coming, I need to know exactly what I'm capable of. Elmenhilde's eyes brightened with approval. Precisely what I was about to suggest. The penthouse includes a Spec.I ally reinforced training room designed for vampire combat practice. We should begin immediately. She led him through a hidden door behind a bookcase, a cliché that amused Issei despite the circumstances, and into a large, open space with reinforced walls and various training equipment. Some appeared conventional, while others were clearly designed for supernatural abilities, including what looked like blood magic circles inlaid in the floor. We'll start with basic physical capabilities, Elmenhilde instructed, her manner shifting from aristocratic companion to stern trainer. Traditional vampires possess enhanced strength, speed, and reflexes beyond human capacity, along with accelerated healing and various specialized abilities that differ between bloodlines. What followed was 3 hours of increasingly challenging tests. Issei discovered his strength had increased approximately 20-fold compared to his human limits, allowing him to bend steel bars and punch through concrete. His speed and reflexes had similarly enhanced, enabling him to catch arrows fired at him from specialized launchers. His senses extended far beyond normal vampire range. He could hear conversations from adjacent buildings and detect individual ingredients in complex scents. Most importantly, they began exploring his unique abilities as a vampire-dragon hybrid. When Elmenhilde cut her palm to demon straight blood manipulation, a common vampire skill where one controlled the movement of blood outside the body, Issei not only replicated the technique but inadvertently caused the floating blood droplets to ignite with crimson dragon fire. Blood flame, Elmenhilde whispered, watching the burning droplets hover in the air. A perfect manifestation of your dual nature. This is merely the beginning. Diedrag's voice rumbled within Issei's mind. The boosted gear's primary ability is to double the user's power repeatedly. Combined with vampire blood magic, the potential applications are extensive. Experimentally, Issei summoned the sacred gear itself. A crimson gauntlet materialized over his left arm, adorned with a green jewel that pulsed with inner light. The process felt different than Diedrag had suggested it should. Rather than manifesting purely from spiritual energy, the gauntlet seemed to form partially from his own solidified blood, creating a hybrid artifact that looked both mechanical and organic simultaneously. Boost, Issei commanded, feeling power surge through him as the gauntlet responded. Boost, Ddrake's voice echoed, no longer confined to Issei's mind but audible in the physical world. The surge of energy was unlike anything Issei had experienced. His already enhanced vampire strength doubled instantly, while the predatory aspects of his consciousness sharpened to painful clarity. The hunger returned with it, more intense than before. Fascinating response, Elmenhilde observed, maintaining clinical detachment despite the obvious danger. FA power-boosted vampire experiencing bloodlust. The energy amplification increases your vampiric aspects proportionally, including the hunger drive. Issei fought to maintain control, focusing on the blood he'd already consumed rather than Elmenhilde's tantalizingly close presence. How do vampires typically handle bloodlust? He managed to ask through gritted teeth. Age and experience provide the primary control mechanisms. She explained, seemingly unconcerned by his struggle. Older vampires develop mental disciplines to manage hunger. Some bloodlines possess inherent advantages in self-control, while others embrace the predatory aspects more fully. With conscious effort, Issei dismissed the boosted gear, feeling the amplified hunger recede to manageable levels. I need better control before using that in actual combat. Agreed. But the potential is extraordinary. For the first time, Elmenhilde allowed genuine excitement to color her voice. A vampire who can boost their power repeatedly would be formidable enough. Combined with dragon energy and unique blood flame abilities, you could potentially challenge beings far above normal vampire weight classes. The training continued with experiments in transformation abilities. Issei refined his mist form, discovering he could control its density and temperature. From frigid fog that froze surfaces it touched to superheated crimson vapor that melted metal. Unlike traditional vampires who transformed into bats or wolves, his alternate forms all incorporated aspects of dragon imagery. His mist occasionally shaped itself into serpentine forms. And when he attempted a solid animal transformation, he manifested as a small, crimson-scaled wyvern rather than conventional vampire fauna. Your dragon essence influences everything, Elmenhilde noted, documenting each discovery in a leather-bound journal. It's as if the vampire magic that should define your supernatural existence is being continuously modified by Ddrake's power. More accurately, we are achieving synthesis rather than competition, Ddrake corrected. Neither aspect dominates. Instead, they create something new. The vampire's connection to blood and night merges with draconic affinity for power and fire. As evening approached, Issei had developed a preliminary understanding of his capabilities and limitations. He possessed most traditional vampire abilities, albeit with draconic modifications, along with a growing connection to the boosted gear's powers. His weakness to sunlight existed but was significantly reduced compared to pure vampires. Holy objects caused discomfort rather than pain, and he discovered he could consume small amounts of regular food, though it provided no nourishment and tasted like ash compared to blood. You've made remarkable progress for your second night of existence, Elmenhilde acknowledged as they concluded training. Most newborns require weeks to achieve basic control of their abilities. Pride swelled in Issei's chest. Throughout his human life, he'd been remarkably unremarkable, a perfectly average student with no special talents beyond his enthusiastic perversion. Now, for the first time, he was excelling at something. Developing at an accelerated rate that impressed even a centuries-old vampire noble. What happens next? He asked, wiping sweat-tinged blood from his brow, another vampire-dragon hybrid peculiarity. As traditional vampires didn't perspire. We prepare for inevitable confrontations, Elmenhilde replied pragmatically. The fallen angels will make another attempt on your life. The devils will investigate the new power in their territory. Traditional vampires will demand explanations for your unprecedented existence. She studied him with calculating eyes. Why? Oh, you must decide where you stand in supernatural politics, as an independent power, aligned with an existing faction, or something else entirely. The weight of these decisions pressed on Issei. As a human, his greatest ambition had been to eventually acquire a girlfriend and perhaps one day assemble a harem of beautiful women who would inexplicably adore him despite his mediocrity. Now he faced ISIS that would impact supernatural politics on a global scale. I need to see my parents, he said suddenly. Even if I can't tell them everything, I need to confirm they're safe and not targeted because of me. Elmenhilde frowned slightly. It's risky. Your control is improving but not perfect. If your hunger activated in their presence, I won't harm them, Issei stated with absolute conviction. They're my parents. The strength of your determination is commendable, partner, Diedrag observed. However, the vampire noble's concern has merit. Your predatory instincts are still developing, and blood relations often trigger complex responses in new vampires. Blood relations, Issei repeated, catching the double meaning. Are you saying I might be more likely to attack my family because we're related? It's a documented phenomenon, Elmenhilde confirmed. The familiarity of their scent combined with the inherent trust they have in you can create dangerous situations. Many historical vampire tragedies began with visits to loved ones that ended poorly. The thought chilled Issei more effectively than any supernatural cold. Then what do you suggest? I can't just disappear from their lives. Controlled, brief interaction, she proposed. We feed you thoroughly beforehand, I accompany you to intervene if necessary, and you maintain physical distance during the visit. A short conversation to reassure them while we develop more permanent arrangements. It wasn't ideal, but Issei recognized the wisdom in her caution. All right, tonight, then, before we owl with fallen angels or devils or vampire politics. Elmenhilde nodded agreement. Very well, but first, you should feed again, more substantially this time. The stress of facing loved ones can trigger hunger unexpectedly. The Hyodo residence looked exactly as Issei remembered it, a modest two-story home in a quiet Kuo neighborhood. Yet his enhanced senses revealed it differently now. He could hear his mother washing dishes in the kitchen, detect his father's distinctive heartbeat as he watched television in the living room, even smell the lingering scent of the curry they'd had for dinner hours earlier. Remember, Elmenhilde murmured beside him, keep physical contact minimal, maintain awareness of your hunger responses, and have a plausible explanation for my presence. Issei nodded, unnecessary breath catching in his throat as nervousness momentarily overrode his new predatory confidence. He'd consumed 3 full decanters of premium blood before leaving the penthouse, ensuring his hunger was thoroughly sated. But anxiety still twisted his stomach. He rang the doorbell rather than using his key, another precaution to maintain distance and formality. His mother answered moments later, surprise and delight lighting her features. Issei, we weren't expecting you tonight. She immediately noticed Elmenhilde standing slightly behind him. Oh, and you've brought your project partner. Please, both of you come in. Actually, Mom, Issei began carefully, maintaining the distance Elmenhilde had recommended, we can't stay long. Just wanted to check in and grab a few things I forgot for the project. His mother's expression shifted to subtle concern. He'd never refused to enter his own home before. Is everything all right? You look different somehow. Issei hadn't considered how his transformation might be visible even to normal humans. While his appearance hadn't drastically changed, his skin was noticeably paler, his eyes more intense, his posture and movements subtly altered by his enhanced physical capabilities. Just tired from working hard, he improvised. This exchange project is really pushing us. Elmenhilde stepped forward with practiced grace, offering a perfect bow at precisely the right angle to convey respect without subservience. Mrs. Hyodo, I apologize for keeping your son so occupied. My research requirements are quite stringent, and Issei has been an invaluable partner. I'm Elmenhilde Karnstein, visiting from Romania through the Special Academic Exchange Program. The formal introduction, delivered with aristocratic Polish in a carefully modulated accent that sounded exotic without being difficult to understand, immediately charmed his mother. Her worry transformed to appreciative surprise. Romania, how fascinating. You must tell us about your country sometime when you're not so busy with schoolwork. Issei's father appeared in the hallway behind his mother, curiosity drawing him from his television program. Issei, who's your friend? The conversation continued with mundane pleasantries, Elmenhilde deftly managing most of the social interaction while Issei focused on controlling his supernatural aspects. The proximity to his parents stirred complicated emotions. Love and protectiveness dominated, but underneath lurked the predatory awareness of their heartbeats, their blood, their vulnerability. "You're doing well, partner," Ddraig encouraged silently. "The control you're demonstrating exceeds expectations for your development stage." After a carefully measured 10 minutes, Elmenhilde smoothly engineered their departure. Citing project deadlines, Issei managed to maintain composure throughout, retrieving additional clothes from his room while his parents chatted with Elmenhilde downstairs. As they walked away from the house, Issei released tension he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "That was harder than fighting fallen angels," he admitted quietly. "The emotional complexity why of maintaining human connections after transformation is why most vampires eventually sever them," Elmenhilde observed, not unkindly. "Your parents seem wonderful people. Their genuine love for you was evident. Which is why I need to protect them," Issei stated firmly. "From fallen angels, from vampire politics, and from me if necessary." He glanced back at the house, commitment solidifying within him. "I'll master this new existence, whatever it takes." Elmenhilde studied him with an unreadable expression. "Your determination continues to impress, Issei Hyodo. Most newborns focus EXCL. You on their hunger and new powers. You've consistently prioritized others' well-being." Before Issei could respond, both vampires froze as a new presence registered on their supernatural senses, a powerful aura approaching rapidly from above, radiating hostility and the distinctive energy signature of fallen angels. "They've found us," Elmenhilde hissed, her aristocratic poise giving way to combat readiness. "We need to move away from your parents' home immediately." Issei nodded in grim agreement, already calculating the fastest route to draw the threat away from his family. Without conscious thought, his body dissolved into crimson mist, flowing rapidly down the street with Elmenhilde transforming into bats beside him. They rematerialized in a deserted park several blocks away, positioning themselves in an open area that offered maneuverability while remaining distant from civilian populations. Moments later, 3 figures descended from the night sky, black feathered wings ended dramatically against the moonlight. Issei recognized Rainer immediately, the fallen angel who had killed him in his human form, her beautiful features now twisted with shock and growing rage as she registered his transformation. Flanking her were 2 additional fallen angels, a petite blonde female and a tall, trenchcoat-wearing male. "Impossible," Rainer snarled, light spears forming in both hands. "I killed you myself." "You killed Issei the human," he replied, surprised by the calm confidence in his voice. "I'm something else now. A filthy vampire," spat the male fallen angel, creating his own light spear. "Mittelt, Rainer. The abomination must be eliminated permanently. Lady Karnstein's presence confirms vampire faction involvement in territory violations." Elmenhilde stepped forward, aristocratic hauteur returning full force. "Donasik of the Gregory, your accusation is as inaccurate as it is discourteous. House Karnstein has filed all appropriate diplomatic notifications regarding my presence in Devil territory. The transformation of Issei Hyodo was neither planned nor executed by vampire leadership. Diplomatic niceties don't concern us," the petite blonde, Mittelt, sneered. "The Red Dragon Emperor's sacred gear cannot be allowed to remain active, especially not in vampire hands." Issei felt power building within him, both the predatory strength of his VA Empire nature and the fierce energy of Ddraig's presence. The crimson gauntlet materialized on his left arm without conscious command, responding to the imminent threat. "Partner, these fallen are significantly stronger than you at your current development level. The female who killed you before has substantial combat experience. Proceed with caution." Rather than intimidating him, Ddraig's warning crystallized Issei's focus. His previously untested combat instincts activated, vampire predatory awareness merging with draconic battle intuition to create a hyper-focused state of readiness. "You tried to kill me once, Rainer," Issei stated, eyes glowing crimson in the darkness. "You betrayed my trust, manipulated my feelings, and pierced my heart while laughing at my pain." Blood flame began to gather around his gauntleted hand. "I won't give you a second opportunity." Rainer's expression shifted from anger to uncertainty as she sensed the unfamiliar power emanating from her former victim. "What are you?" "I am the Crimson Emperor of the Eternal Night," Issei declared, embracing the title for the first time. "The first vampire Red Dragon Emperor. And you're trespassing in my hunting grounds." With those words, the night erupted into violence. Raynor launched her light spears with practiced precision, the holy energy they contained particularly dangerous to Issei's vampire nature. Instead of dodging, he dissolved into crimson mist, the weapons passing harmlessly through his transformed state before he rematerialized and countered with a blast of blood flame. Elmenhilde engaged Mittelt directly, moving with aristocratic grace that belied lethal speed. Her centuries of combat experience showed in every efficient movement as she dodged light spears and closed distance, forcing the fallen angel into disadvantageous close-quarters combat. Donesiek proved the most dangerous opponent, combining powerful light weapons with skilled flight maneuvers that made him difficult to target. He maintained altitude advantage, raining attacks from above while analyzing patterns in Issei's responses. Boost. Diedrag's voice echoed through the park as Issei activated the Sacred Gear's primary ability. Feeling power surge through his transformed body. Strength, speed, and vampire abilities doubled instantly, allowing him to move faster than even Donesiek could track. Impossible. The fallen angel growled, creating a barrier of light to protect himself. Vampires cannot wield sacred gears. I'm rewriting the rules, Issei replied, gathering blood flame into a concentrated sphere. Boost. Power doubled again, the crimson flames intensifying until they burned white-hot at their core. The fallen angel launched multiple light spears simultaneously, attempting to overwhelm Issei with volume rather than precision. Most missed as Issei moved with supernatural speed, but one grazed his shoulder, holy energy searing vampire flesh with particular effectiveness. Pain lanced through him, but rather than weakening his resolve, it focused it. Issei channeled the sensation into his attack, compressing the blood flame further until it resembled a miniature sun contained in his palm. Dragon shot, he called instinctively, naming the technique as it formed. The compressed energy launched toward Donesiek with devastating speed. The fallen angel attempted to dodge, but Issei had anticipated his movement pattern, leading the target perfectly. The blood flame sphere struck Donesiek's wing, detonating with concussive force that sent him spiraling to the ground. Meanwhile, Elmenhilde had pinned Mittelt against a tree, one hand clamped around the fallen angel's throat while the other held a blood-formed blade against her heart. Yield, she commanded with aristocratic authority that brooked no argument. Only Raynor remained combat effective, hovering above the battlefield with increasing desperation as she witnessed her companion's defeat. Her beautiful features contorted with rage and fear as she gathered light energy for a final, desperate attack. You were supposed to die a pathetic, worthless human, she screamed, creating the largest GHT spear yet, a javelin of holy energy that illuminated the entire park with harsh radiance. You're nothing. Issei faced her calmly, the predatory confidence of his vampire nature combining with draconic pride. I was nothing, he corrected. Now I'm something your kind has never encountered before. He raised his gauntleted hand, blood flame swirling around it. Boost. Power surged through him a third time, approaching the current limits of his control. The hunger rose correspondingly, but Issei channeled it into focused aggression rather than mindless bloodlust. As Raynor hurled her massive light spear, he met it with a concentrated beam of blood flame that cut through the holy energy like a laser through fog. The beam continued past the dissipating light spear and struck Raynor directly, not killing her but searing through one wing and sending her crashing to the ground. Before she could recover, Issei was upon her, moving faster than human eyes could track to pin her as Elmenhilde had restrained Mittelt. You took everything from me, Raynor gasped, genuine fear replacing arrogance in her eyes. My reputation, my standing with Azazel-sama, all because I failed to eliminate one human boy. And now that human boy holds your life in his hands, Issei replied, fangs visible as he spoke. The predatory vampire instinct urged him to tear out her throat, to asked fallen angel blood and absorb her power. The impulse was nearly overwhelming. Partner, consider carefully. Killing in battle is sometimes necessary, but execution of defeated enemies defines your path forward. The choice you make now will echo through your development. Diedrag's wisdom penetrated Issei's bloodlust. With tremendous effort, he controlled the predatory urge, maintaining his grip on Raynor without delivering a fatal strike. You will carry a message to your leaders, he stated, voice resonating with unnatural harmonics that compelled attention. The Red Dragon Emperor exists beyond your reach now. Any further attempts against me or those I protect will be met with appropriate response. He leaned closer, crimson eyes boring into hers. And Raynor, if you ever approach me or mine again, I won't show the same restraint. With that, he released her, stepping back as she scrambled away. Donasek had regained consciousness, though his wings remained damaged. Elmenhilde maintained her hold on Mittelt. This isn't over, Raynor snarled, helping Donasek to his feet. The Gremory won't tolerate a vampire dragon abomination interfering with their objectives. Then they should avoid placing those objectives in my path, Issei replied simply. He nodded to Elmenhilde, who released Mittelt with aristocratic disdain. The three fallen angels retreated, taking to the sky with labored flight. Their wounded pride perhaps more significant than their physical injuries. As they disappeared into the night, Issei released tension he hadn't realized he'd been maintaining. The boosted gear dissipating from his arm as combat readiness faded. You fought impressively for a 3-day-old vampire, Elmenhilde observed, brushing imaginary dust from her elaborate dress. Though your technique requires refinement, your instinctive grasp of your abilities is remarkable. Issei managed a tired smile. I had good motivation. He looked toward the direction of his parents' home, still visible to his enhanced vision despite the distance. They're safe for now, but this is just beginning, isn't it? Indeed. The fallen angels will report to their superiors. The devils certainly detected our battle and will investigate. And Vampire Society. Elmenhilde's expression grew more serious. Word of your existence will spread rapidly through our kind. Some will fear you, others will seek to control or destroy you, and a few may recognize the opportunity you represent. The weight of his new existence settled more firmly on Issei's shoulders. In just 3 days, he had transformed from ordinary teenager to something unprecedented in supernatural history, a vampire-dragon hybrid with growing powers and enemies already gathering. Then we prepare, he stated with newfound determination. I need to master these abilities completely, understand the politics I've been thrust into, and build sufficient strength to protect what matters to me. Elmenhilde. He studied him with an unreadable expression before offering a formal curtsy that seemed genuinely respectful rather than performatively aristocratic. Then I shall continue to assist you, Issei Hyodo. Your journey as the Crimson Emperor of the Eternal Night has only just begun. As they departed the battlefield, transforming into their respective travel forms, Issei felt something he hadn't expressed. Experienced since his human death, genuine hope for the future, tinged with newfound confidence and determination. Whatever challenges awaited, whatever enemies gathered, he would meet them not as the unremarkable boy he had been, but as something new and powerful, a being of his own making, defined by his choices rather than others' expectations. The night embraced him as one of its own, and for the first time, Issei embraced it in return. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Crimson Politics. Rias Gremory stood atop Kuo Academy's clock tower, crimson hair whipping in the night breeze as she surveyed her territory. The elegant devil heiress narrowed her turquoise eyes, focusing on the lingering magical residue from the previous night's battle. Fallen angel energy intertwined with something else, something both familiar and utterly foreign. Not quite vampire, not entirely dragon, but a bewildering amalgamation of both that shouldn't exist within the natural order. Akeno, she addressed her queen without turning. What do you make of it? The raven-haired beauty beside her closed her eyes, extending her supernatural senses toward the disruption. Lightning crackled subtly around her fingertip, as she processed the magical signatures. Era, how unusual. The fallen angel's energy is unmistakable, Raynor's faction, most likely. But this other power, her eyes opened, revealing genuine surprise. It carries traces of the boosted gear, but merged with ancient vampire magic in a way I've never encountered. Rias frowned, aristocratic features tensing in thought. The Red Dragon Emperor was supposed to awaken in this territory. I've been monitoring potential hosts for months. Her fingers tightened on the stone parapet. Someone has interfered with my plans. Not just someone, observed a diminutive white-haired girl who materialized from the shadows. Kaneko Tuju, Rias's rook, moved with characteristic economy, every gesture precise and minimal. Vampire nobility, old blood. Rias turned sharply. You're certain? Kaneko nodded once, expression unchanging. Recognized the magical signature. House Karnstein. The Karnsteins. Akino's eyebrows rose in surprise. They rarely involve themselves in external affairs, preferring to manage internal vampire politics from their ancestral territories. They've never shown interest in sacred gear users before, Rias mused, mind racing through implications. Something unprecedented is happening. She straightened. Decision made. Assemble the peerage. We need to investigate this thoroughly before other factions establish footholds in our territory. As her servants vanished to carry out her orders, Rias remained alone on the tower, crimson hair illuminated by moonlight. The Red Dragon Emperor is a vampire, she whispered. Tasting the impossible concept. Who would have imagined such a thing? A quiet laugh escaped her lips, equal parts frustration and intrigue. Her carefully laid plans to recruit the boost D-Gear's wielder into her peerage had evaporated, but perhaps something more interesting had taken their place. After all, Rias Gremory had always appreciated the unexpected. Miles away, in a NT house gleaming with modern luxury and ancient artifacts, Issei Hyodo practiced blood manipulation under Elmenhilde's critical gaze. Droplets of his blood hovered between his palms, forming complex patterns that shifted with his thoughts. Where a normal vampire could maintain perhaps a dozen individual droplets in coherent formation, Issei controlled hundreds, each infused with a crimson glow that betrayed their draconic enhancement. Your precision improves daily, Elmenhilde noted, circling him with aristocratic grace. 4 days had passed since his transformation, and his progress continued to defy conventional development patterns. Though your technique lacks the refinement that comes with decades of practice, your raw potential compensates impressively. Issei concentrated, compressing the blood droplets into a spinning crimson sphere. How practical is blood manipulation in actual combat? Seems more useful for ritual magic than fighting. Conventional assessment from one raised in human combat paradigms. Elmenhilde replied with the faintest hint of condescension. Blood is the fundamental medium of vampire power. In skilled hands, it becomes weapon, shield, scrying tool, and conduit for more complex magics. To demonstrate, she pricked her finger with a delicate fang and extracted a single drop of her own blood. With a graceful gesture, she expanded it into a raw, thin crimson disc that sliced cleanly through a steel practice dummy before returning to hover above her palm. Most impressive, Issei acknowledged, dismissing his own blood sphere. Though I I'll prefer my blood flame for direct combat. Understandable. Your unique hybrid abilities naturally favor offensive applications. Elmenhilde materialized a crystal glass of blood from a nearby side table, sipping it with practiced elegance. However, blood manipulation's utility extends beyond combat. It serves diplomatic and political functions within vampire society. Issei raised an eyebrow, reaching for his own glass. Unlike Elmenhilde's practiced aristocratic movements, his drinking retained elements of human informality despite his conscious efforts to adopt vampire etiquette. Political functions. Like what? Blood oaths bind contracts more powerfully than any written document. Blood scrying allows secure communication across vast distances. Blood samples freely given serve a identification more reliable than any passport or credential. Elmenhilde's eyes took on a calculating gleam. Which brings us to our next priority. Establishing your formal standing within vampire society. Issei set down his glass, wariness evident in his posture. His accelerated development had included heightened political awareness that would have been foreign to his human self. I assumed my unprecedented hybrid status placed me outside traditional vampire hierarchy. Quite the opposite, Elmenhilde corrected. Your unique nature makes your position within our society more crucial, not less. Vampire politics abhors ambiguity. Unclassified entities represent threats to established order. So what are my options? Issei asked, internal alarms activating. For all her assistance and apparent loyalty, Elmenhilde remained a noble vampire with centuries of ingrained political calculation. Her objectives didn't necessarily align perfectly with his own. Be cautious, partner, Dedrade warned within his mind. Vampire political structures evolved specifically to control power distribution. Your hybrid nature represents precisely the kind of unpredictable power they most fear. Elmenhilde gestured toward an antique wooden chest that had arrived via supernatural courier that morning. Traditional vampire society offers 3 paths for beings of significant power: vassalage to an established noble house. Petition for recognition as an independent power, or, she paused meaningfully, foundation of a new bloodline. Issei considered each option, analytical abilities sharpened by his transformation. Vassalage means serving another's interests. Independent recognition requires proving my strength against established powers. What does founding a new bloodline entail? A subtle smile curved Elmenhilde's lips. Demonstrating the ability to transform others into your specific type of vampire, creating progeny who inherit your unique characteristics rather than traditional vampire traits. Creating more vampire-dragon hybrids. Issei frowned. Is that even possible? Unknown, she admitted, which makes it the most intriguing option politically. Vampire. Society values bloodline continuity above almost all else. A vampire who cannot create progeny holds inherently diminished status regardless of personal power. The implications settled heavily on Issei's shoulders. His transformation had thrust him into political calculations spanning centuries rather than election cycles. These ancient vampires thought in terms of bloodlines, inheritance, and dynastic power, concepts utterly foreign to his former human existence. And where does House Karnstein stand regarding my options? He asked directly, crimson eyes meeting her burgundy gaze. Elmenhilde's expression revealed nothing, centuries of political training maintaining perfect composure. House Karnstein recognizes the potential advantages in all three scenarios. Your vassalage would bring unprecedented power under our banner. Your independence would allow for alliance without direct responsibility for your actions. Your new bloodline would create opportunities for advantageous connections between our houses. Diplomatic non-answer, Issei observed, surprising himself with his political acumen. His former human self would have accepted her statement at face value. What do you want, Elmenhilde? Not House Karnstein, you personally. The question visibly startled her, cracking her aristocratic facade momentarily. For a vampire noble, personal desires were rarely acknowledged. Separately from house objectives, a distinction most outsiders failed to recognize. Her composed expression faltered, revealing genuine uncertainty before royal discipline reasserted itself. I want, she began, then paused. Recalibrating. I find your development scientifically fascinating and politically significant. Your continued growth benefits my research and House Karnstein's position in vampire society. Issei recognized the deflection but chose not to press further. Their relationship remained complex, mentor and student, noble and anomaly, researcher and subject. Whatever persona, interest might exist beneath her aristocratic exterior, she wasn't ready to acknowledge it directly. Let's table the political decisions temporarily, he suggested. You mentioned the chest contains something important. Grateful for the subject change, Elmenhilde moved to the ornate wooden box. Indeed, the Vampire High Council has acknowledged your existence officially, following my preliminary report. This contains their formal response and required documentation. She opened the chest, revealing velvet-lined compartments containing various objects, ancient-looking parchments bearing wax seals, vials of dark liquid, ceremonial daggers, and a small obsidian medallion carved with arcane symbols. This is a formal recognition package, Elmenhilde explained, lifting the medallion reverently. Regardless of your eventual political standing, the Council acknowledges your existence as a supernatural entity with diplomatic status. This medallion serves as your credential within vampire territories and formal gatherings. Issei accepted the obsidian disc, surprised by its weight and the subtle magical energy emanating from it. What's the catch? Vampire politics doesn't strike M. E is particularly generous with recognition. Perceptive, Elmenhilde acknowledged with approval. The recognition comes with requirements. You must present yourself to the full council within 1 lunar cycle for formal assessment. Additionally, you must provide blood samples for official registry. Political maneuvering, Diedrag commented internally. They seek to classify and understand your capabilities while demonstrating authority through procedural requirements. And if I refuse? Issei asked, testing boundaries. Elmenhilde's expression turned serious. Refusal would mark you as rogue, potentially hostile to established vampire society. While your power might protect you initially, it would unite otherwise fractious vampire factions against a common threat. Issei weighed his options, strategic thinking that would have been beyond his human self now coming naturally. I'll comply with registration and assessment, but maintain independence until I fully understand the political landscape. Wise choice. Elmenhilde approved. Now, the blood registry requires 7 samples. From the chest, she produced 7 crystal vials, each etched with different arcane symbols. With practiced efficiency, she explained the purpose of each: identity confirmation, power assessment, lineage tracking, magical affinity, territorial recognition, oath binding, and something ca. LLED, essence preservation, that she described vaguely as insurance against final death. Issei provided the required samples, his hybrid nature manifesting in blood that glowed subtly crimson even in ordinary light. As Elmenhilde carefully sealed each vial, he sensed the magical bindings activating, creating connections to vampire society that would be difficult to sever. There's more, Elmenhilde continued, retrieving an envelope sealed with black wax. A personal communication from Lord Vladdy, head of House Vladdy and current High Council chairman. Issei accepted the letter with appropriate gravity, breaking the seal to reveal elegant handwriting on parchment that radiated subtle magic. To the entity identifying as Issei Hyodo, your unprecedented existence has come to the attention of the High Council through House Karnstein's formal notification. While the combination of vampire essence and dragon power violates traditional metaphysical boundaries, the Council acknowledges the potential value in studying your unique condition. Asterisk. You are hereby granted provisional recognition pending formal assessment. Lady Karnstein will continue as your official liaison and observer. Her reports suggest accelerated development and unusual abilities consistent with both vampire and draconic heritage. Asterisk. Be advised that the prophetic implications of your emergence have not escaped notice. The Crimson Codex references remain sealed, but preliminary divination suggests your existence fulfills certain obscure criteria mentioned therein. Asterisk. House Vladdy extends cautious diplomatic recognition. My heir, Gaspar Vladdy, currently residing in Devil territory near your location, has been instructed to establish preliminary contact at his discretion. Asterisk. Blood and shadow sustain us. Lord Alaric Vladdy, High Council Chairman. Issei reread the letter, focusing on the mention of prophecy. What's the Crimson Codex? Elmenhilde's expression revealed genuine surprise. He mentioned the Codex directly. Extraordinary. She composed herself quickly. The Crimson Codex is among Vampire Society's most closely guarded texts, a prophetic manuscript dating back millennia, allegedly written in the blood of the first vampire. Most of its contents remain sealed, accessible only to the High Council inner circle. And apparently I fulfill some obscure criteria mentioned in it, Issei mused. Uncertain whether to feel concerned or flattered by the attention. Any idea what specific prophecy might relate to a vampire-dragon hybrid? Elmenhilde hesitated, internal conflict visible as she weighed her responsibilities to vampire society against her growing loyalty to Issei. There are rumors, she finally acknowledged. Fragments of prophecy that occasionally circulate among noble houses. One speaks of blood and fire united, bringing transformation to the eternal night. Blood and fire united, Issei repeated, instinctively summoning a small flame of crimson dragon fire to dance above his palm. Vampire blood magic and dragon fire combined in one being. Precisely why your emergence has captured the Council's attention so completely, Elmenhilde confirmed. If you indeed represent fulfillment of Codex prophecy, every vampire house will seek alliance, influence, or control. The political implications expanded exponentially. Issei was no longer merely an unusual, supernatural anomaly but potentially a prophesied figure within vampire society. The weight of these expectations settled on his shoulders alongside his growing powers and responsibilities. Holy, tickle prophecy interpretation is particularly dangerous, partner, Diedrage cautioned. Throughout history, powerful beings have been manipulated through selective revelation of prophetic fragments. Remain skeptical of convenient interpretations that serve others' interests. Noted, Issei murmured aloud, drawing a curious glance from Elmenhilde. To her, he added, we should prepare for more visitors, then. If vampire politics is suddenly interested in me, other factions won't be far behind. As if summoned by his words, both vampires tensed as their enhanced senses detected multiple powerful auras approaching the penthouse, supernatural entities moving with purpose rather than random patrol. Devils, Elmenhilde identified, aristocratic features hardening into combat readiness. Specifically, the Gremory heiress and her peerage. Issei moved to the windows, enhanced vision easily spotting the approaching group despite the darkness. Leading them was a figure he recognized instantly, Rias Gremory. The crimson-haired beauty his human self had admired from afar, now approaching as devil royalty investigating a supernatural incursion. "They're not attacking," he observed, noting their measured pace and non-aggressive formation. "This appears to be a diplomatic approach rather than combat. Devils rarely begin with overt hostility when gathering information serves their purposes better," Elmenhilde cautioned, adjusting her elaborate dress with aristocratic precision. "The Gremory heiress has reputation for unusual compassion by devil standards, but make no mistake, she comes to assess a potential threat to her territorial authority." Issei straightened, unconsciously adopting a more commanding posture than his human self would have managed. "Then we'll receive them properly. This territory may technically fall under devil jurisdiction, but I'm no longer a human subject requiring their permission to exist here." Elmenhilde's eyes widened slightly at his authority. Tative tone before a small smile of approval curved her lips. "Indeed. Shall I activate formal diplomatic protections for this meeting?" At Issei's nod, she moved to an ornate wooden box on the mantelpiece. Extracting a vial of dark liquid. With practiced precision, she traced complex patterns on the penthouse floor using the blood within, vampire magic that established traditional diplomatic boundaries and witness protocols. "Blood wards activated," she confirmed as the patterns sank into the floor, becoming invisible to normal sight while radiating subtle power detectable to supernatural senses. "Any aggression within the boundary will be formally recorded and transmitted to both devil and vampire diplomatic registries." The precaution complete, they waited as the devil contingent head the building and presumably navigated normal security through supernatural means. Minutes later, a polite but firm knock sounded at the penthouse door. Issei exchanged a meaningful glance with Elmenhilde before moving to answer, consciously balancing appropriate caution with diplomatic courtesy. Opening the door revealed Rias Gremory in all her devil princess glory, flanked by members of her peerage, the raven-haired beauty Akano Himahima, the diminutive white-haired Kaneko Tuju, and the princely blonde Kiba Yudo. "Issei Hyodo," Rias greeted him with perfect aristocratic poise, Thog. Her turquoise eyes widened fractionally at his transformed appearance. "I believe we have matters to discuss." Rias Gremory, he acknowledged with newfound confidence, stepping aside in formal invitation. "Please enter and be recognized as diplomatic visitors under blood ward protection." Something flashed across Rias's expression, surprise at his knowledge of supernatural diplomatic protocol, perhaps. Or recognition that she faced not the ordinary human boy she'd been monitoring but something altogether different. "We accept the protection and limitations of the blood ward," she responded formally as her group entered. Her gaze shifted to Elmenhilde, aristocratic recognition passing between them despite representing different supernatural factions. "Lady Karnstein, your presence in evil territory was not formally announced through expected channels. Emergency circumstances superseded standard notification procedures," Elmenhilde replied smoothly, offering the precise degree of FBO appropriate between noble houses of different factions, respectful without submissive. "Retroactive documentation has been filed with the appropriate offices." The formal diplomatic exchange established baseline protocols, both women acknowledging each other's status while maintaining their respective positions. With preliminaries complete, attention returned to Issei, the unprecedented entity. "Why at the center of this unusual gathering?" "I must admit curiosity regarding your transformation," Issei Hyodo, Rias stated, studying him with analytical interest. "Our information suggested you possessed a dormant sacred gear with significant potential. Your sudden emergence as," she paused, searching for appropriate terminology, "a vampire entity with dragon energy represents an unexpected development." Issei gestured toward comfortable seating arranged in the penthouse's main room. "The transformation wasn't planned, at least not by me. After the fallen angel Rainer killed me, some thing ancient beneath the abandoned church offered an alternative to permanent death." As the devils seated themselves with practiced grace, Issei recounted his transformation and subsequent discoveries about his hybrid nature. He maintained diplomatic openness while carefully avoiding strategic details about his developing abilities or political considerations. Rias listened with remarkable focus. occasionally exchanging glances with Akeno that suggested silent communication between longtime allies. When Issei finished his abbreviated account, she leaned forward with genuine interest. Fascinating. A vampire-dragon hybrid should be metaphysically impossible. The divine nature of sacred gears typically rejects undead essence. Her gaze intensified. May I? She extended a hand wreathed in subtle magic, a request to directly sense his supernatural nature rather than relying on description. The gesture represented significant trust in supernatural diplomacy, as such scanning could reveal vulnerabilities if misused. Issei glanced at Elmenhilde, who gave a nearly imperceptible nod indicating the request fell within acceptable diplomatic parameters. You may, he agreed, extending his arm. Rias's fingers hovered inches from his skin, crimson magical energy extending from her hand to interact with his aura. Her eyes widened as direct magical contact confirmed what her senses had suggested. Extraordinary, she breathed, genuine wonder breaking through her aristocratic composure. The vampire essence and dragon power aren't merely coexisting, they're synthesizing into something new. I've never encountered anything like it. Neither has vampire society, Elmenhilde confirmed, maintaining formal diplomatic tone despite the unprecedented nature of the discussion. Initial assessment suggests Issei represents an entirely new supernatural classification. The white-haired girl, Kaneko, spoke for the first time, her effect flat but words precise. Dangerous, unpredictable power signatures, not necessarily dangerous to devil interests, the blonde knight, Hiba, countered diplomatically. Particularly given the fallen angel's apparent hostility toward Hyodo-san. Akeno's lips curved in a subtle smile. Era, enemies of our enemies and all that. Perhaps we share common adversaries. The political maneuvering beneath seemingly casual conversation wasn't lost on Issei. His transformed mind processed the undercurrents with newfound acuity. The devils were assessing not just his nature but his potential alignment in the complex supernatural power balance. My priorities remain straightforward, Issei stated clearly. I intend to protect those I care about, master my new abilities, and establish sufficient standing to ensure my continued independence. Admirable objectives, Rias acknowledged with a diplomatic smile that revealed nothing of her true thoughts. Though independence in the supernatural world requires considerable power and political acumen, many new entities find faction alignment provides necessary protection during development. The subtle recruitment attempt was skillfully delivered, acknowledging his stated desire for independence while suggesting its impracticality and offering an unstated alternative. House Karnstein has provided initial guidance and protection during this transition period, Elmenhilde interjected smoothly. Vampire Society recognizes Issei's unique status and potential value. The territorial statement established Vampire Society's prior claim to Issei's allegiance, though carefully worded to Avenue OID direct confrontation with devil interests. The political dance continued with exquisite subtlety, each faction representative establishing positions without crossing into open hostility. Of course, Rias conceded gracefully. Though as territorial administrator for this region, House Gremory maintains responsibility for supernatural activity affecting local stability. She turned her attention fully to Issei. The fallen angels who attacked you have withdrawn temporarily but remain in the area. Their interest in the boosted gear predates your transformation. You were monitoring me before all this happened. Issei realized aloud, pieces connecting in his mind. You knew about my sacred gear while I was still human. A flash of something, guilt perhaps, crossed Rias's perfect feature. Before diplomatic composure reasserted itself. We maintain awareness of significant sacred gear potential within our territories. Your boosted gear registered on routine scans months ago, though it remained dormant. She had plans for you, partner, Diedrag observed internally. Devils commonly recruit sacred gear users into their peerages, particularly those with powerful Longinus class gears like myself. The realization settled over Issei. In another reality, he might have become part of Rias Gremory's peerage, bound to her through devil reincarnation magic rather than forging his own path as a vampire-dragon hybrid. You intended to recruit me, he stated directly, crimson eyes meeting her turquoise gaze without accusation but with clear understanding. Rias held his gaze, aristocratic pride preventing denial of obvious truth. I monitor all significant potential in my territory. Had circumstances developed differently, I might have offered you a place in my peerage. Her expression softened slightly, though that option became metaphysically impossible with your vampire transformation. The acknowledgement cleared the air, establishing greater authenticity in the diplomatic exchange. With the unstated agenda now openly addressed, conversation shifted to more immediate practical concerns: fallen angel movements, territorial security, and potential collaborative efforts against common threats. As discussion continued, Issei found himself impressed by Rias Gremory's diplomatic skills and genuine intelligence. Her aristocratic manner concealed a sharp strategic mind and surprising adaptability. Where another devil might have responded to his transformation with hostility or attempted dominance, she approached the unprecedented situation with pragmatic assessment of potential alignments. "May I propose a limited cooperation agreement?" Rias eventually suggested. "While maintaining your independent status and vampire society connections, we could establish information sharing regarding fallen angel movements and other threats within this territory." The offer represented a reasonable middle ground, acknowledging his autonomy while creating structure communication channels that benefited both parties. "Acceptable," Issei agreed after brief consideration. "With the understanding that my presence here isn't subject to devil authority, but collaborative security benefits everyone." "Of course," Rias confirmed with diplomatic precision. "We recognize your unique status outside normal territorial protocols." With preliminary agreement established, Elmenhilde produced formal documentation, blood contracts inscribed on specialized parchment that would bind the agreement through supernatural means stronger than mere signatures. "Standard diplomatic format," she explained, presenting the documents for inspection. "Limited information sharing, mutual non-aggression, and territorial courtesy without hierarchical implications." Rias reviewed the contracts with practiced ease, nodding approval at the carefully balanced language. "Acceptable terms. Shall we proceed with the binding?" The formal process required blood from both primary RTIES, Issei and Rias, applied to specific locations on the contract while reciting binding phrases in ancient languages. Elmenhilde guided Issei through the unfamiliar ritual with subtle prompts, ensuring his participation met supernatural diplomatic standards. As the final words were spoken, the blood on the parchment glowed briefly before sinking into the material, leaving visible signatures that radiated subtle magical energy. The contract duplicated itself automatically, creating identical copies for each faction's records. "It is done," Rias declared formally, accepting her copy with appropriate ceremony. House Gremory acknowledges Issei Hyodo as an independent entity with established diplomatic standing. The formal business concluded, the atmosphere shifted subtly as diplomatic necessity gave way to more genuine interaction. Rias's peerage members, who had maintained formal postures throughout the proceedings, relaxed marginally. "I must admit personal curiosity about your transformation," Rias acknowledged, her tone shifting from purely diplomatic to more conversational. "The combination of vampire traits and dragon power creates unique magical resonance. We're STILL discovering the full implications ourselves," Issei admitted, finding himself warming to her genuine intellectual interest. "Each day reveals new interactions between the different aspects of my nature." "Would you be willing to demonstrate?" asked Kiba with respectful interest. "As a Devil Knight, I study various combat manifestations of supernatural energy." Issei glanced at Elmenhilde, who gave a subtle nod indicating the request remained within acceptable parameters of their new agreement. "A brief demonstration seems reasonable." He extended his hand, summoning a sphere of blood Florida. That hovered above his palm, crimson energy that combined vampire blood manipulation with draconic fire. The devils watched with undisguised fascination as he shaped it into various forms, demonstrating control beyond normal vampire abilities. "Remarkable integration of opposing magical frameworks," Akino observed with genuine appreciation. "The harmonic resonance between blood magic and dragon energy shouldn't be possible according to conventional supernatural theory. Yet here we are," Issei responded with a slight smile, dismissing the blood flame. "Rewriting the rules of what's possible." The demonstration seemed to satisfy the devil's immediate curiosity while establishing Issei's competence without revealing the full extent of his developing abilities. As the meeting concluded with appropriate diplomatic courtesies, Rias paused at the doorway, turning back with an expression more genuine than her previous aristocratic mask. "I look forward to our cooperation," Issei Hyodo, she stated. Turquoise eyes meeting his crimson gaze directly. I suspect your emergence will change the supernatural landscape in ways none of us fully anticipate. With that prophetic observation, the devil contingent departed, leaving Issei and Elmenhilde alone in the penthouse. The diplomatic energy dissipated gradually, blood wards fading as their purpose concluded. You managed that remarkably well for someone with less than a week's experience in supernatural politics, Elmenhilde observed, genuine approval evident in her tone. Most newborns would have been overwhelmed by a direct meeting with devil nobility. Issei released tension he hadn't realized he'd been maintaining. It helps that I knew who Rias Gremory was before my transformation. She had a reputation at school as someone untouchable and perfect. He smiled slightly. Meeting her as equals rather than as admiring human and devil princess creates different dynamics. Indeed, though be cautious, her interest Lee remains both political and strategic despite the cooperative agreement. Elmenhilde moved to collect the diplomatic materials, organizing them with aristocratic precision. Devils play extended games, particularly those of noble houses. Quote, as do vampires, Issei noted with newfound political awareness. Speaking of which, we should discuss Lord Vladdy's letter and this prophecy business more thoroughly. Elmenhilde's expression shifted to something more serious. Yes, though such discussions require proper context. The Crimson Codex isn't merely ancient vampire lore, it's the foundation of society's most guarded magical knowledge. The following nights established new patterns as Issei balanced continued development of his abilities, political education, and the practical realities of his transformed existence. His unprecedented nature continued manifesting in unique ways. He could tolerate significantly more sunlight than traditional vampires, required less frequent blood consumption, and developed hybrid abilities that combined vampire and dragon traits in previously impossible configurations. Most significantly, his connection to Ddraig deepened beyond the standard sacred gear bond. The ancient dragon's consciousness became more directly integrated with Issei's transformed mind, allowing continuous communication rather than limited exchanges. This synthesis accelerated Issei's strategic development, combining his natural adaptability with Ddraig's millennia of accumulated wisdom. Your progress exceeds all historical precedent, Ddraig observed during a particularly intense training session. Previous hosts typically required months to achieve comparable control of the boosted gear's basic functions. Your vampire transformation appears to have NCED neural pathways related to supernatural energy manipulation. Practical benefit of undead physiology, Issei replied, maintaining a complex blood flame construct while simultaneously practicing physical combat forms Elmenhilde had introduced. My brain's operating on different principles now, more parallel processing capacity. This particular training session focused on combining traditional vampire abilities with the boosted gear's power amplification. Elmenhilde observed from the sidelines, documenting each successful technique and unexpected interaction between the different supernatural systems. Try redirecting the boosted energy specifically into your transformation capabilities, she suggested, making notes in her ever-present journal. Traditional vampires cannot enhance their form-changing abilities through conventional means. Issei complied, summoning the boosted gear and channeling its amplification specifically into his mist form transformation. The result exceeded expectations. Instead of simply dissolving into crimson mist, he transformed into a swirling vortex of blood flame that moved with devastating speed while maintaining coherent consciousness. Extraordinary efficiency ratio, Elmenhilde noted, scientific interest momentarily overriding aristocratic reserve. The energy consumption should be prohibitive, yet you're maintaining stable form with minimal apparent effort. Issei reformed, the boosted gear still manifested on his left arm. It feels natural, like the transformation draws power directly from both aspects of my nature simultaneously, rather than requiring separate energy allocations. Synergistic rather than additive, Ddraig confirmed. Your hybrid existence creates magical efficiencies impossible in segregated supernatural systems. These accelerated developments heightened political interest from multiple factions. Following the initial meeting with Rias Gremory, representatives from other supernatural groups made diplomatic overtures, some transparent in their intent to assess his potential threat level, others more subtle in their approach. Most significantly, Vampire Society's interest intensified. 3 nights after Lord Vladdy's letter arrived, a more direct vampire contact manifested. Gaspar Vladdy, heir to House Vladdy and fellow sacred gear wielder, requested formal introduction through appropriate diplomatic channels. This meeting carries significant implications, Elmenhilde explained as they prepared to receive the Vladdy heir. Gaspar's position is uniquely complex, vampire nobility exiled for possessing a sacred gear. Currently residing under devil protection within Rias Gremory's peerage. He's part of Rias's group. Issei asked, surprised by this connection. He wasn't present at our diplomatic meeting. His relationship with Vampire Society remains complicated, Elmenhilde clarified. Despite being heir to House Vladdy, his sacred gear manifestation and subsequent devil association created political difficulties that necessitate careful management of public appearances. The diplomatic preparation for this meeting differed from the devil contingent's visit. Where Rias's reception had focused on territorial and faction considerations, Gaspar's visit required internal vampire protocols, symbolic arrangements of ancient artifacts, specific blood ritual preparations, and formal acknowledgement of house hierarchies despite the unusual circumstances. Remember, Elmenhilde instructed as final preparations concluded, despite his current devil association, Gaspar remains vampire nobility by birth. The appropriate formal acknowledgements must be observed before transitioning to more direct communication. Issei nodded understanding, adjusting the formal attire Elmenhilde had insisted upon for this meeting. Traditional vampire nobility clothing modified to accommodate his hybrid nature, featuring both the crimson accents of the Red Dragon Emperor and subtle modifications that acknowledged his unique status. Unlike the direct approach of the devil contingent, Gaspar Vladdy's arrival manifested through traditional vampire means. A swarm of bats materialized on the penthouse balcony, swirling dramatically before coalescing into a diminutive figure that defied Issei's expectations of vampire nobility. Gaspar Vladdy appeared as a petite, androgynous individual with platinum blonde hair and striking red eyes that marked his vampire heritage. His attire combined traditional vampire nobility elements with what appeared to be a Kuo Academy girl's uniform, creating a visual contradiction that somehow worked despite its incongruity. Most notably, he projected an aura of nervous anxiety entirely at odds with typical vampire aristocratic confidence. Hello, he greeted with unexpected timidity, hands fidgeting with the hem of his skirt. I'm Gaspar Vladdy. Father instructed me to establish formal contact, but I'm not very good at vampire protocols despite all the lessons. His obvious discomfort with formal proceedings created an immediate departure from standard vampire diplomatic interactions, where Elmenhilde embodied aristocratic precision in every movement. Gaspar radiated uncertainty and social anxiety that humanized him despite his noble lineage. Elmenhilde recovered quickly from her momentary surprise, executing a formal bow approach. Reate to the heir of a high-ranking house. Lord Gaspar, House Karnstein acknowledges your presence with appropriate honor. May I present Issei Hyodo, recognized entity under provisional diplomatic status. Issei followed Elmenhilde's lead, offering the formal bow she had taught him for interactions with vampire nobility. House Vladdy honors us with direct representation. The formal acknowledgments visibly increased Gaspar's anxiety rather than putting him at ease. Could we maybe skip some of the formal parts? I'm technically here as AR representative of both House Vladdy and Rias Bushu's peerage, which makes the protocols really complicated and I always mix them up. His plaintive request broke through diplomatic formality, creating an unexpectedly genuine moment amidst supernatural politics. Issei found himself smiling at the contradiction between Gaspar's high-ranking status and his obvious discomfort with its trappings. Works for me, Issei agreed, relaxing his formal posture. I'm still learning all these protocols myself. Relief washed over Gaspar's features as Elmenhilde reluctantly conceded with a slight nod, aristocratic training yielding to practical necessity. Abbreviated protocols may be acceptable given the unique circumstances, she acknowledged, though her tone suggested this represented significant concession to vampire tradition. With formalities reduced, they moved to more comfortable seating arranged in the penthouse's main room. Despite his initial nervousness, Gaspar demonstrated unexpected insight once conversation turned to Issei's hybrid nature. Your transformation is fascinating from a metaphysical perspective, he observed, anxiety diminishing as intellectual interest engaged. My own experience integrating sacred gear in RGY with vampire physiology required extensive magical intervention from both devil and vampire specialists. Yet Issei's integration occurred spontaneously, Elmenhilde noted. Without external magical assistance. Gasper nodded energetically. That's what makes it so extraordinary. The theoretical boundaries between divine origin artifacts like sacred gears and undead essence should be absolute. According to conventional supernatural taxonomy. As discussion continued, Issei discovered Gasper possessed remarkable knowledge despite his youthful appearance and anxious demeanor. His personal experience as a vampire sacred gear wielder provided unique perspective on Issei's condition, offering insights neither Elmenhilde nor Diedrag had considered. The primary difference appears to be transformation sequence. Gasper explained, gaining confidence as he elaborated on technical details. I was born vampire and later manifested the sacred gear forbidden below view, creating metaphysical conflict that required external resolution. You died as a human sacred gear wielder and transformed into vampire through direct essence transfer, allowing simultaneous integration of both supernatural systems, resulting in entirely different metaphysical architecture, Elmenhilde concluded, making rapid notes in her journal. Fascinating implications for supernatural taxonomy. The technical discussion eventually yielded to more direct political matters as Gasper reluctantly delivered his father's formal message. Father instructed me to inform you that the High Council has called an urgency session regarding your existence. The prophecy references in the Crimson Codex have generated significant debate. What kind of debate? Issei asked, immediately alert to potential complications. Gasper's nervous fidgeting returned. Some council members believe you represent fulfillment of the Blood and Fire United prophecy, which predicts transformation of vampire society through outside influence. Others consider this interpretation premature or deliberately misleading. Political factions forming around prophetic interpretation, Elmenhilde translated, aristocratic features hardening with understanding. Predictable response to unprecedented metaphysical development. My father's faction advocates cautious observation rather than immediate action, Gasper continued. But others push for more direct involvement, either to secure your allegiance or, he hesitated, discomfort evident, neutralize potential threat to established order. The diplomatic phrasing didn't obscure the implication. Some vampire factions viewed Issei's existence as dangerous enough to warrant elimination rather than integration. Political prophecy inevitably generates extremist responses. Diedrag observed internally. Those who benefit from existing power structures resist predicted change through any means necessary. Has the council reached any formal decision regarding my status? Issei asked directly. Gasper shook his head. Deliberations continue. My father's position as chairman has temporarily prevented precipitous action, but pressure builds from conservative factions. His crimson eyes reflected genuine concern. Some have begun mobilizing resources independently of council authorization. Meaning, Issei prompted, though he suspected the answer. Meaning certain vampire houses may send representatives to assess or challenge you directly, Elmenhilde clarified, aristocratic reserve failing to completely mask her concern. Outside formal diplomatic channels, the implications settled heavily over the gathering. Issei's unprecedented nature had accelerated political maneuvering within vampire society faster than anticipated, generating potential threats beyond the fallen angel's existing hostility. There's more, Gasper added reluctantly. The Carmilla faction has expressed particular interest in your development. They've requested permission to send their own observer to supplement House Karnstein's documentation. Elmenhilde's reaction was immediate and uncharacteristically emotional. Her aristocratic composure cracked to reveal genuine alarm. House Carmilla's involvement would significantly complicate matters. Their interpretation of the Crimson Codex prophecies traditionally favors aggressive intervention rather than evolutionary development. Who exactly are the Carmilla faction? Issei asked, recognizing the name from vampire literature but lacking specific political context. House Carmilla represents the most progressive, some would say radical, faction within vampire society, Elmenhilde explained, regaining her composure with visible effort. Where traditional houses like Vladi and Karnstein maintain concessions to ancient vampire customs and hierarchies, Carmilla advocates revolutionary change and adaptation to modern supernatural politics. They believe vampire society must evolve or face extinction, Gasper added. Their methods are often controversial, but their influence has grown substantially in recent centuries. The political landscape grew increasingly complex with each new revelation. Issei's hybrid existence had become a focal point for vampire political divisions that predated him by centuries, his unprecedented nature serving as catalyst for long-simmering factional conflicts. So where exactly do you stand in all this, Gasper? Issei asked directly. Between your father's faction, your devil connections, and your own unique status as a vampire sacred gear wielder. The question visibly startled Gasper, who rarely faced such direct inquiry about his complicated political position. His nervous fidgeting intensified momentarily before he composed himself with unexpected dignity. I believe in integration rather than isolation, he stated with surprising firmness. My existence as both vampire and sacred gear wielder within a devil peerage demonstrates supernatura. Boundaries are more permeable than traditionalists acknowledge. His crimson eyes met Issei's with newfound confidence. Your hybrid nature represents evolutionary potential rather than metaphysical corruption. The statement revealed unexpected depth beneath Gasper's anxious exterior, genuine philosophical conviction informing his political positioning despite personal discomfort with formal vampire politics. An enlightened perspective, Elmenhilde acknowledged with gracious aristocratic diplomacy, though her tone suggested House Karnstein might not entirely share this progressive viewpoint. As their meeting concluded, Gasper offered one final piece of information, delivered with apologetic reluctance but clear importance. There's one more thing Father instructed me to tell you. The Carmilla faction has already dispatched their representative without awaiting formal council approval. She's expected to arrive within days. Did he provide a name? Elmenhilde asked sharply, aristocratic reserve momentarily abandoned. Gasper nodded, discomfort evident. Lady Millarca Carmilla, House Carmilla's primary diplomatic operative and rumored codex interpreter. The name clearly held significance for Elmenhilde, whose composed expression faltered briefly before aristocratic training reasserted control. I see. Thank you for this information, Lord Gasper. It allows for appropriate preparation. With diplomatic business concluded, Gasper's departure carried less formal ceremony than traditional vampire protocols would demand, a mutual acknowledgement of the unusual circumstances surrounding their respective positions within supernatural society. Once alone, Issei turned to Elmenhilde with direct inquiry. This Millarca Carmilla, her imminent arrival concerns you. Why? Elmenhilde hesitated, internal conflict visible as she weighed long-established vampire political loyalties against her evolving relationship with Issei. Lady Millarca represents complexity, she finally acknowledged. House Carmilla's interest in prophetic fulfillment has historically manifested in direct intervention rather than observational documentation. Meaning she will likely attempt to influence your development directly rather than merely report on it. Elmenhilde's aristocratic features hardened with rarely displayed emotion. Where my approach has focused on documenting your natural evolution and providing contextual education, Carmilla methodology typically involves active shaping through various means. The diplomatic phrasing obscured specific concerns, but Issei's enhanced perception detected underlying tension in Elmenhilde's typically composed demeanor. You've had previous interactions with her. It wasn't a question but an observation based on Elmenhilde's uncharacteristic emotional response. The statement hung between them momentarily before she acknowledged with aristocratic restraint, we have history. Complicated by both political and personal factors. The admission revealed more through its careful phrasing than explicit detail, suggesting relationship dynamics beyond mere political alignment. Before Issei could inquire further, both vampires tensed as their enhanced senses detected supernatural energy signatures approaching rapidly from multiple directions. Fallen angels, Issei identified, crimson eyes narrowing as he extended his senses toward the disturbance. Significantly more than our previous encounter. Combat formation rather than observation pattern. Elmenhilde moved to the windows with aristocratic grace that belied instant combat readiness. At least 8 distinct signatures. Higher power levels than the previous group. This represents escalation rather than continued assessment. Perfect timing, Issei observed with grim humor. Nothing like an assassination attempt to temporarily simplify complex political calculations. Despite the genuine threat, Issei felt strangely energized rather than alarmed. His rapid development over the past week had built confidence in his growing abilities, while political complications had created intellectual exhaustion. Straightforward combat against clear enemies offered refreshing simplicity compared to navigating vampire prophecies and factional maneuvering. "They're making a serious attempt," Elmenhilde noted, aristocratic precision extending to tactical assessment. "Multiple attack vectors, coordinated approach patterns. This bears hallmarks of official Gremory operational procedure rather than rogue fallen angel activity. Meaning Rainer's soup. Rias have authorized formal elimination efforts rather than individual initiative," Issei concluded, already mentally calculating combat strategies. "Diplomatic incident risk hasn't deterred them. The boosted gear represents significant strategic value," Elmenhilde reminded him. "Particularly in hands they can neither control nor predict." Issei nodded understanding, summoning the Crimson Gauntlet with practiced ease. The sacred gear materialized with subtle differences from standard manifestation, draconic components interwoven with vampire symbolic elements, creating visual representation of his hybrid nature. "We should relocate from the penthouse," he decided, strategic assessment coming naturally to his transformed mind. Civilian protection protocols aside, House Karnstein probably prefers its property remain intact. Quote, "Appreciated," Elmenhilde acknowledged with aristocratic understatement. "I recommend the abandoned industrial zone 3 kilometers east. Sufficient space foe. Our combat maneuvering without collateral damage risk." With practiced coordination developed through intensive training, both vampires transformed simultaneously, Issei into his distinctive crimson mist form, Elmenhilde into her swarm of bats. They flowed from the penthouse through carefully designed emergency exits, moving with supernatural speed toward the suggested battleground. As they traveled, Issei maintained partial awareness of the fallen angels adjusting their approach vectors to track their movement, confirmation that this attack targeted them specifically rather than representing territorial patrol. The coordinated response indicated sophisticated tracking capabilities beyond Rainer's previous resources. Their operational pattern suggests Central Command Coordination, DD. Raig observed as they approached the abandoned industrial zone. Likely a higher-ranking fallen angel directing field assets from secure position. Agreed, Issei responded internally. Tactical recommendation. Identify command presence if possible. Fallen angel hierarchy values leadership preservation. Neutralizing command assets often collapses operational cohesion more effectively than engaging field units individually. The strategic assessment aligned with Issei's developing combat instincts. As they reached the abandoned factory complex, a sprawling collection of dilapidated buildings and rusting equipment, he rematerialized on a partially collapsed rooftop offering good visibility across the surrounding area. Elmenhilde reformed beside him, aristocratic composure maintained despite imminent combat. They've established perimeter containment, conventional fallen angel encirclement tactics, designed to prevent escape rather than maximize initial strike effectiveness. Issei extended his supernatural senses, counting energy signatures with growing precision. 12 distinct fallen angels, varied power levels, 2 significantly stronger than the others, likely command elements. His enhanced vision easily penetrated the darkness, identifying individual fallen angels as they positioned themselves around the abandoned complex. Most appeared as standard combatants with light-based weaponry. But 2 figures stood out. A voluptuous woman with violet hair and a tall man with fedora and trenchcoat, both radiating power levels substantially above their companions. Calawarner and Donasek, Elmenhilde identified, mid-ranking Gremory operatives with combat specialization. The violet-haired woman favors ranged light attacks, the man specializes in close quarter combat with light-enhanced physical techniques. No sign of Rainer, Issei noted, scanning the perimeter again. Interesting absence given her personal involvement in my human death. Possibly relegated to secondary status after her failure, Elmenhilde suggested. Fallen angel hierarchy punishes operational disappointment severely. As they completed their assessment, the fallen angels finished establishing their containment formation. Rather than immediate attack, the violet-haired woman, Calawarner, stepped forward with formal declaration. Issei Hyodo, abomination of vampire and dragon essence. Her voice carried across the abandoned complex with supernatural projection. The Gremory formally demands surrender of the boosted gear sacred gear. Comply and your vampire existence may continue. Resist and face complete eradication. The formal demand represented standard supernatural conflict protocol, offering nominal diplomatic alternative before committing to open hostilities. Both Issei and Elmenhilde recognized it as empty formality rather than genuine negotiation attempt. "Shall I provide standard diplomatic rejection?" Elmenhilde inquired with aristocratic precision. "As your formal Vampire Society representative, protocol suggests." "I've got this," Issei interrupted with newfound confidence, stepping forward to address the fallen angels directly. "The boosted gear and I have become metaphysically inseparable through my transformation. Your demand is technically impossible to fulfill even if I were inclined to surrender, which I'm not." His response carried clearly across the complex, enhanced by subtle vampire magic that Elmenhilde had taught him for formal declarations. The diplomatic phrasing established his position while highlighting the fallen Ang's flawed understanding of his condition. Calawarner's expression hardened with visible frustration. "Then you leave us no alternative but elimination. The Red Dragon Emperor's power cannot remain in vampire possession. The strategic implications are unacceptable to Gremory leadership." With that declaration, formal hostilities commenced. Light spears manifested around multiple fallen angels simultaneously, launching toward Issei and Elmenhilde's position with coordinated precision. Both vampires evaded with practiced grace, Elmenhilde dissolving into bats that scattered in multiple directions, Issei transforming into crimson mist that flowed between incoming projectiles with fluid efficiency. They rematerialized at separate locations, splitting the fallen angel's attention as planned during previous tactical discussions. "Boost." Diedrag's voice echoed across the complex as Issei activated the sacred gear's primary function, feeling power surge through his hybrid form. His vampire abilities enhanced significantly, blood flame gathering around his gauntleted hand with intensified potency. The fallen angels adjusted their approach immediately, recognizing the strategic threat posed by the boosted gear's power amplification. 4 combatants focused on Issei while 2 attempted to neutralize Elmenhilde, preventing her from supporting his combat effectiveness. Calawarner directed operations from elevated position, coordinating attack patterns with practiced efficiency while maintaining range pressure through continuous light spear barrages. Danesic moved to engage Issei directly, clearly designated as primary close combat specialist against the most significant threat. "Your abomination ends tonight," Danesic declared as he closed distance, light-enhanced combat daggers materializing in both hands. "The dragon gear will be extracted and contained properly." Issei met the attack with newfound combat confidence, vampire reflexes and dragon power combining to match the experienced fallen angel's speed. Where his human self would have been instantly overwhelmed, his transformed nature allowed him to counter Danesic's strikes with growing precision. "Boost." Power surged again as Diedrag's voice resonated through the battlefield. Issei's strength and speed doubled further, allowing him to transition from defensive counters to offensive pressure against the surprised fallen angel. Simultaneously, Elmenhilde demonstrated why House Karnstein maintained respected combat reputation despite aristocratic appearance. Moving with centuries' refined precision, she neutralized both fallen angels assigned against her through misdirection rather than direct power confrontation, using vampire illusion techniques to turn their attacks against each other before mobilizing both with blood-binding restraints. Across the complex, battle unfolded with supernatural intensity, light spears illuminating the darkness in brilliant flashes, crimson blood flame critique in contrasting illumination as Issei countered with his hybrid abilities. The fallen angels maintained disciplined coordination despite growing casualties, Calawarner's tactical direction compensating for individual combat disparities. "Their command structure remains their primary advantage," Diedrag observed as Issei temporarily disengaged from Danesic to reassess the battlefield. "Targe." Calawarner directly to disrupt operational cohesion. The strategic assessment aligned with Issei's developing combat instincts. With another boost, amplifying his abilities further, he execute a maneuver impossible for traditional vampires, combining mist form transformation with draconic propulsion to launch himself directly toward Calawarner's elevated position. The fallen angel commander recognized the threat immediately, concentrating defensive light barriers around herself while ordering remaining combatants to intercept. Light spears converged from multiple directions, creating deadly crossfire designed to disrupt Issei's approach vector. Instead of attempting to evade completely, Issei adopted hybrid defense, partially materializing to absorb manageable damage while maintaining overall momentum toward his target. The strategic calculation accepted minor injuries to achieve critical objective, disrupting command structure to collapse overall combat effectiveness. Blood F. Lame gathered around his gauntleted hand as he closed final distance to Calawarner, compressing into concentrated form Elmenhilde had helped him develop during training sessions. Dragon Shot, he declared, naming the technique as Ddraig had suggested for focused intent. The compressed energy launched at point-blank range, overwhelming Calawarner's hastily erected light barriers and striking with concussive force that sent her crashing through the factory's deteriorated wall. The impact didn't neutralize her completely but disrupted her command coordination at critical moment. As predicted, the Fallen Angel formation immediately lost cohesion without centralized direction. Individual combatants continued fighting effectively but lacked the coordinated approach that had initially threatened to overwhelm the outnumbered vampires. Elmenhilde capitalized on the disorganization instantly, centuries of combat experience allowing her to identify and exploit tactical vulnerabilities with aristocratic precision. Moving through battlefield with practiced efficiency, she neutralized 3 additional fallen angels through combination of misdirection and precisely applied vampire magic. Nasik attempted to assume command authority, shouting orders to re-establish formation, but the momentary confusion had already shifted combat momentum irreversibly. With another boost, amplifying his abilities to 4th tier, Issei engaged the fallen angel directly with unprecedented speed and strength. The fallen angel's experience showed in his adaptive defense, light-enhanced combat technique, adjusting to counter Issei's hybrid attacks with remarkable efficiency. However, the power differential had expanded beyond tactical compensation as boosted gear continued amplifying Issei's base capabilities. Your existence violates natural order, Danasik snarled, frustration evident as his counterattacks proved increasingly ineffective against Issei's enhanced speed. Vampires cannot LD sacred gears, the metaphysical contradictions cannot be sustained. I'm redefining possibility, Issei replied, confidence growing with each successful exchange. The limitations you believed absolute were merely boundaries no one had crossed before. With 5th boost resonating across battlefield, Issei executed combination attack Elmenhilde had helped him develop, vampire blood manipulati. On creating momentary binding that immobilized Danasik's defensive movements while blood flame gathered for decisive strike. Dragon Inferno, he named the technique instinctively, Crimson Flames Enhanced by boosted gears amplification engulfing the fallen angel with controlled intensity, sufficient to neutralize without killing, demonstrating precision beyond mere power application. With both command elements neutralized and over half their combat force incapacitated, the remaining fallen angels recognized untenable tactical position. 3 retreated immediately, abandoning the operation rather than facing certain defeat. The others attempted final coordinated attack that Elmenhilde neutralized with aristocratic efficiency, centuries of combat experience evident in her economical movements. Within minutes, the battlefield contained only conscious combatants, Issei and Elmenhilde standing victorious amidst fallen opponents. Calawarner and Danasik remained semi-conscious but combat ineffective, their defeated forms symbolizing significant escalation in supernatural conflict surrounding Issei's existence. Impressive tactical execution, Elmenhilde acknowledged, aristocratic composure maintained despite the intense combat. Her formal attire remained largely intact, vampire nobility training emphasizing combat effectiveness without sacrificing appearance. Your strategic PT ability exceeds expectation for your developmental stage. Issei dismissed the boosted gear, allowing amplified power to recede to normal levels as immediate threat passed. The command structure assessment proved accurate. Neutralizing leadership collapsed their overall effectiveness despite numerical advantage. They approached the defeated fallen angel commanders, maintaining appropriate caution despite their incapacitated state. Calawarner glared with undisguised hatred while Danasik maintained stoic resignation appropriate to defeated warrior. The Gremory will not abandon this objective, Calawarner declared despite her compromised position. Your abomination threatens established order between supernatural factions. Higher authorities will intervene directly. Then they'll Discover the same outcome with greater consequences, Issei responded with newfound diplomatic confidence. Deliver clear message to your leadership. Further aggression will establish the Gregory as hostile not only to me personally but to vampire society broadly, given my formal recognition under vampire diplomatic protection. The political implications weren't lost on the fallen angel commanders, whose expressions revealed reluctant reassessment. Direct conflict with vampire society represented significant escalation beyond targeted elimination of individual anomaly, diplomatic complication. Their operational authorization likely hadn't anticipated. Additionally, Elmenhilde added with aristocratic precision, House Karnstein will file formal diplomatic protest regarding this unprovoked attack on recognized representative and associated diplomatic entity. Cross-faction adjudication protocols provide for significant penalties against organizations violating supernatural non-aggression principles. The formal diplomatic language established consequences beyond immediate combat outcome, leveraging supernatural political frameworks to create additional deterrence against future attacks. Both fallen angel commanders recognized the strategic complication, exchanging glances that acknowledged operational parameters had expanded beyond their current authorization. We will convey your position to appropriate leadership, Issei finally acknowledged with reluctant formality. Though outcome of such communication remains uncertain. With diplomatic position established, Issei and Elmenhilde permitted the fallen angels to retrieve their incapacitated comrades and depart, maintaining vigilance until supernatural signatures faded beyond detection range. The decisive victory represented significant development in Issei's growth trajectory, demonstrating combat effectiveness against organized opposition far earlier than conventional vampire development patterns would suggest possible. As battle aftermath settled around them, Elmenhilde studied Issei with analytical interest partially obscured beneath aristocratic composure. Your performance exceeded tactical projections significantly. The integration of vampire abilities with draconic power continues accelerating beyond conventional developmental frameworks. It feels increasingly natural, Issei acknowledged, examining minor injuries already healing through his enhanced regeneration. The vampire and dragon aspects aren't competing systems anymore, they're functioning as unified whole with emergent properties beyond either original framework. The synthesis approaches stabilization phase, Drake observed internally. Previous hosts required months to achieve comparable coordination with boosted gear functionality. Your hybrid nature has accelerated integration processes exponentially. The dragon's assessment aligned with Issei's subjective experience, his transformed existence felt increasingly coherent rather than divided between competing supernatural systems. Where initial days had required conscious management of separate vampire and dragon abilities, combat now flowed naturally between aspects without distinct boundaries. This victory will have significant political implications, Elmenhilde noted as they prepared to depart the battlefield. Defeating organized Gregory operation demonstrates capability beyond theoretical potential. Multiple factions will reassess your position within supernatural power hierarchies, including vampire society, Issei concluded. Understanding political ramifications extending beyond immediate combat outcome. News of this battle will reach the council before Millarca Carmilla arrives. Indeed, Elmenhilde's expression allied momentary calculation before aristocratic composure reasserted itself, which potentially creates both opportunity and complication regarding your upcoming evaluation. As they departed the abandoned industrial complex, transforming into their respective travel forms, Issei contemplated evolving political landscape surrounding his existence. Each development, from initial transformation through vampire society recognition to direct conflict with fallen angels, accelerated timeline for decisions regarding his ultimate position within supernatural world. The crimson moon hung above Kuo town, symbolic witness to blood spilled and power demonstrated. Issei's path as the Crimson Emperor of the Eternal Night continued unfolding, each challenge reshaping both his understanding of his transformed nature and the supernatural world's recognition of unprecedented possibility his existence represented. The night embraced him more completely with each passing day, and his mastery of its mysteries grew correspondingly. Political complexities awaited. Prophecies demanded interpretation, and faction representatives gathered with varied agendas, but tonight, victory provided momentary clarity amidst gathering complications. Chapter 2 End. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.